Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about smaller exercises and weak point training, because this is something that comes up, and I get some people who will say things like, Jason, you're against smaller movements. And notice I don't use the word isolation movement, because I think that is a made-up bodybuilder word, and there is no such thing, and we need to get away from that concept. That entire idea really has no place in training, at least for anyone who's serious about being an athlete or getting as big as possible without using copious amounts of anabolics. But smaller movements, they have their place. I'm not against them. It's just that I don't believe people need large numbers of them. I think that big exercises are what build 95% of your size and strength. And I think this is the most efficient, most effective way to do so. Now, when it comes to smaller exercises, that's kind of the point that I would point out. They're there to fill in the weak links. They're there to give extra work to muscles when you can't handle any more of the big exercises, and to help bring up the big exercises. And what do I mean by that? All right, for example, let's take your bench press, right? Fantastic chest and tricep builder. In addition to good upper body all-around size builder, right? It'll put muscle in various spots in your body. If you did nothing but bench press, you'd have muscles that grow besides just your pecs, front delts, and triceps. Now, it would have a limited effect, but it will make things bigger. But it's a great exercise. Great exercise. If you reach a certain threshold when you're getting more advanced and you've built a base on the bench press, eventually you do start to stall on the bench press, and you start to run into problems with it, right? You can't always progress indefinitely on the big exercise. And you start to reach certain muscle and strength imbalances. And it could be, performance imbalances, could be aesthetic imbalances. And of course, what is it that we always say? Well, if you do more training that you can recover from, then you'll grow more within reason. Yeah, assuming rest, food, recovery, and everything is there. But we have a finite amount of recovery in our body. We do. And you can only handle so much bench pressing. You can only handle so much squatting. You can only handle so much overhead pressing. There are limits. Particularly with connective tissue and joints and everything else. So what happens when we need to train a smaller movement? So like for me, I'm doing tricep extensions right now. Yeah, I'm doing them 4 days a week. They're a major part of my routine. But people question that. They question that, and they're like, well, I don't understand. Well, why wouldn't you just isolate everything then? Well, because you don't need to. You don't need to try to train just smaller muscles. When you're building your size off of the big exercises, let's say something like the bench press or the overhead press, your weak link, and in my case the triceps, if you do extra volume for just that one small muscle, it doesn't really impact your overall recovery that much. Right? It doesn't impact your overall recovery that much. And if it does, it might be time to reassess your training volume. But if you come in and you do a large amount of tricep extensions, and you thicken your triceps up with them, well, size equals strength. So if you thicken your triceps up and you continue to bench press and you don't lose any size in your pecs, and you don't lose your technique, is your bench press probably going to go up? Yes. If it's the weakest link, it absolutely will go up. Usually increasing the size and strength of any muscle in an exercise will, most of the time, not always, but oftentimes will make the lift go up. But if it's the weakest link, it will absolutely go up. So let's say that your bench press, your max is 275 for 5 reps, in your normal pause bench, medium grip bench. And you go do a bunch of tricep extensions, and you thicken your triceps up, and you spend several months working your triceps really, really hard. They get bigger, they get stronger, and it increases your bench press. Now, if you take your bench from 275 for 5 up to 295 for 5, you add 20 pounds to your 5 rep max. And accordingly, 20 pounds to your work capacity all the way across the board. Your 1 rep max will probably go up 20 pounds. Your 8 rep max will go up 20 pounds. Some of your assistance movements will go up 20 pounds. Your floor press will probably go up. Your overhead press will probably go up, right? All these other exercises that involve the triceps are going to go up also. So what's going to happen to the other muscles? They're going to grow. They're going to grow. Because if you were imbalanced and you were already growing a chest that it was bigger and stronger relative to your triceps on the bench press, what does that tell you? That for you, you're just built to use more chest on the bench. That's the way that you're built. You develop chest easier off the bench press. So you build your triceps up, and now you can handle more weight on the bench. Well, the fact that you're handling more weight is going to make the primary muscle that grew really well when you were weaker continue to grow. It's going to grow just fine. So a lot of people would want to come in and say, well, when you want to just isolate or attempt to use a smaller movement, right? Use a smaller movement for all the muscles. Well, no, because you don't need to. Why would you? If your chest was already growing disproportionately large to your triceps to the point where your triceps became a weak link on your bench press, you don't have a problem with your chest. The bench press makes your chest get bigger and stronger just fine. And we're talking about not just for competitive powerlifting here, guys. We're talking about for people who want to get bigger, right? Let's say you just want to get bigger. Well, that will solve the problem because you've taken the weak link in the big exercise and you've made it stronger with the limited amount of additional recovery you have left. Because you could work in 15 sets of extra tricep extensions a week with a lot less recovery than working in 10 more sets of bench would destroy your recovery in comparison to an extra 15 or even 20 sets of tricep extensions. But you've taken your finite amount of systematic recovery and you've put it into a smaller muscle. And again, as long as you don't get overuse injuries and inflammation in your tricep tendon as a result of it, which can happen if you're not careful, you need to be very careful on what exercises you select for the smaller ones, because smaller exercises can predispose you to that very easily if you're not careful. A lot of the smaller exercises actually carry great risk of injuries compared to the big exercises. Certain types of overuse injuries, because again, people tend to just train them in a haphazard manner without thinking about those things. Whereas in big exercises, we have been very careful over the years to develop ways to do them safely, right? Coaches have figured it all out. Smaller exercises, people tend to not put that same effort into it. So they tend to get you hurt. They tend to cause inflammation if you're not careful. But you've made that muscle smaller. Everything is going to get a heavier load now. Therefore, you're going to continue to grow all the way across the board. So that's the way that I believe in using the smaller exercises, and that's what I would tell anyone, irrespective of what your goals are. Most of your training workload and size is going to come from the big exercises. And if you're going to do smaller exercises, I would suggest that you put all of your efforts into your weak points. Meaning, if you have any additional recovery left for smaller movements, you would never waste that on something that's growing just fine. Waste it on the weakest link, because at the end of the day, what's going to add more to your bench press? It's going to add more to your overall size. The muscle that's lagging the most, the weakest muscle, that's the one that needs the most attention. So I wouldn't even waste the 5 sets of flies to go train your chest separately. Put it all into your triceps. Just pick versions of your tricep exercises that are not going to cause connective tissue inflammation. Pick efficient, good movements. Build your triceps up. That way you will be able to bench more and your chest will continue to grow, right? It's pretty straightforward. It's the same with any other lift. What about your overhead press, right? One of the best shoulder girdle and upper chest builders known to man, but it is very dependent. The strict standing press done correctly is very tricep heavy. Triceps can become a weak link in that movement. Well, if you work the triceps, you don't need to do necessarily side delts if the triceps are the weak link, right? Work the triceps. If that's the weak link, work them. Your overhead press will go up. Your overhead press goes up and you can now handle heavier workloads on the overhead press. That's going to trickle down. It is going to carry over to every muscle involved in the overhead press. The front delts, the side delts, the rear delts, the upper traps, the upper chest, right? All of those muscles are going to get a trickle down benefit because you have strengthened the weakest link. So no, you don't need to go through and try to strengthen every little thing in your body. You need to find your weak links. You need to find the areas that are going to give you the most bang for your buck in terms of your overall development and strength and performance. And that's what you need to train. That's where any small movements that you do need to be thrown. In fact, I would almost say you don't need to do more than, maybe 2 or 3 smaller body parts ever. We're not talking about competitive bodybuilding here. We're talking about general fitness, athletes, right? train the weakest links. Train your weakest links and don't worry about the other stuff. It's all going to come along from your big movements. Everything else is going to grow from the big movements as they improve. Train the smallest links so that you increase your overall performance in your workload. And always assess what those weak links are, and that's what you need to train. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.